The car showed up exactly 6 a.m. I saw Agent Hudson sitting in the passenger seat. An older man, probably in his 60s, sat behind the wheel. I had never seen him before. I got in the back seat and smelled the cologne, and the freshener filled the car. A pleasant combination, like vanilla and flowers. I looked at the older man in the rearview mirror. He smiled at me, his dark eyes meeting mine. He stared at me for a long moment. Agent Turker recruited you, huh? He said, more in a statement than a question. I nodded. He's a good man, Stretcher. He recruited me, too, all those years ago. My name is Al, by the way. I'm semi-retired, but I still drive for the company, he said, using the informational name from the CIA. A lot of people who worked for it simply called it, quote-unquote, the company, end of quotes, or, quote-unquote, the agency, end of quotes, assuming everyone would know exactly what agency they meant. Nice to meet you, Al, I said, feeling tired. I had taken a caffeine pill and some general supplies just before I left, but that combination hadn't kicked in. I looked at Mark, who stared out the passenger side window, not speaking. Is it your first time in a DPRK? Al asked. I nodded. Boy, some crazy shit goes down in that country. My dad was in the Korean War. Have you ever heard of a Jawiskin? I had heard of the term, but I didn't really know anything about it. Now, I grew up in the USA. I speak Korean. My family taught it to me, but I don't really know the urban legends, I said. His eyes narrowed as he drove down the highway towards the military airport. This is no urban legend, he said critically. The Wublin is real. My dad actually saw one when he was on guard duty. He said he was alone on the watchtower. Their company had taken heavy losses. Usually, they had 2 people on guard duty, but until reinforcements arrived, he had to do it alone. He mostly had chain smoke cigarettes and drink caffeine. He said nothing had really happened. Then one night, something finally did. It wasn't North Korea behind it. He saw women walking out of the trees, each one of them in a white funeral gown. They had string black hair covering their faces, and he couldn't see their eyes. He didn't even know how they saw to move forward. Their hair went down past their chest, and they seemed, well, strange, inhuman even. He called out broken Korean, telling them this is a military outpost and they need to turn back immediately. They just kept walking, going farther and farther now, their movements jerkily and unnatural. He knew something was wrong. He called for backup, turned off the safety on his gun, and started to aim. He called out again, telling them he was about to fire. They didn't stop immediately. They started running towards the guard tower, then a dozen of them, and as they ran, the wind blew their hair back from their faces. He saw they had skulls underneath, grinning, bloody skulls with pieces of rotten flesh hanging off. They were barefoot, and he saw the bones in their feet from where the skin and muscle had worn away. It was eerie how they jerked and limped at such unhuman speeds. He said, "Open fire." But they had reached the lantern of the guard tower. He shot a few but they kept coming, twisting their body, unnaturally dark blood stained on their white gowns and a black color. He could see straight through some of them, where the bullets had torn through their arms or legs, but they seemed to feel no pain. He started to pray. He saw broad, pale hands reaching up from the ladder of the guard tower. Without thinking, he jumped a fairly long fall, he said, but he rolled and only ended up breaking 3 fingers and his arm and spraining his ankle. In immense pain, he tried to run as fast as he could, but the reinforcements arrived. By the time they got to the tower, they could only find trails of dark, cloven blood and some stringy black hair still on the deck where my father had been. He stopped talking, taking the exit to the airport. The silence in the car seemed devastating. He pulled into the gate, showing his identification. The security guard let the gate rise and wrote something from the post. Soon we were pulling up to the jet, and Al was waving goodbye to Agent Hudson and me. "Good luck, new blood," he said to me, "and remember, my story wasn't campfire bullshit. There actually are things in those woods in that country that aren't normal, and with all their biological and chemical weapon research, it may be much, much worse now." With that, he put his window down, turning the car around and driving away. A blur of black trim and sequel tires shining under the hot sun. On the flight over to China, Agent Hudson and I discussed the plan. We would sneak in through the relatively porous Chinese-North Korea border. That at the same exact time, when the guards were being changed, we had about 5 minutes window where the departing guard would brief and arriving guard in the station watchtower before coming back out. Moreover, we would be armed with various weapons in addition to the Glock 30 I always carried on my shoulder holster. Under my suit on the plane, we had 2 Hustler and Glock H2 416 rifles equipped with both fully automatic and semi-automatic switches. We had pre-filled magazines and DUMS, special bullets that had expand on impact and create catastrophic tissue injuries in any enemy we encountered. In addition, we had grenades, lots of rounds, blue M67s that would fragment and explode across the area 40 feet wide, and we had 2 very small guns with special needles filled with elipone, a quick-acting impulse usually used to sedate elephants or large mammals that would instantly put down a normal human. We also had optical against, so the person wouldn't stop breaking after receiving Adderall. If we found any North Korean scientists or high-ranking officials, we thought we could take them out alive. We were supposed to find using the tranquilizer gun, though it was a secondary priority. If we could get them closer to the border, then a few military agents would be in place to grab the hostages from us. The North Korea border guard could be killed if the hostage was deemed valuable enough. This was all off the books, and if we were captured and tortured, the U.S. would immediately deny any involvement or knowledge and say they were lone wolves or mercenaries. Before we knew it, we were landing in China in an airfield, surrounded by lush trees. A Chinese driver who didn't speak a lick of English was there waiting for us. He took off quickly. I looked back at the sleek metal jet, wondering if I would see it again. He dropped us off seemingly in the middle of nowhere. We were in a deserted dirt road with deep depths and large stones scattered all off. Next to us, a thick, dark green forest loomed rising up into the mountain that stood like watching giants overhead.